The quantum sensors aboard the Zrillion observation vessel erupted in a cascade of alerts, detecting an energy signature unlike anything their civilization had encountered in 10,000 years of space exploration. Chief Scientist Zell floated before the crystalline display, their translucent form rippling with waves of blue phosphorescence, a sign of intense excitement in their species. "Impossible," they whispered, their voice resonating through the chamber's neural interface. "These readings suggest a level of bioelectric resonance that shouldn't exist naturally." The source, a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system, third from its sun. As the vessel's sensors focused on the planet's surface, the Zrillion crew witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about advanced civilizations. The humans were touching each other. Constantly. Everywhere. A parent pressed their lips to a child's forehead. Two elderly humans held weathered hands as they walked through a park. A group of younger humans embraced in what appeared to be some kind of celebration. Each instance of contact generated brilliant flares of energy on the Zrillion instruments, like miniature supernovas of biological activity. "Their technology is primitive," observed second analyst Vec, their form barely visible even in the ship's enhanced lighting. "And yet, these energy signatures. They're stronger than our quantum cores." Zell initiated a deeper scan, their consciousness interfacing directly with the ship's systems. The results made their entire form flicker with shock. It's not their technology generating these fields. It's the touch itself. The physical contact between their bodies creates some kind of resonance cascade, amplifying their life force. The implication struck the crew into silence. For millennia, the Zrillion race had evolved away from physical form, pursuing the purity of thought and energy. They had abandoned crude matter in favor of near transcendence. Their children were now created in quantum cradles, never knowing the touch of another being. They had considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution. Until now. Vec's form destabilized momentarily, their equivalent of a gasp. "Chief Zell, the latest reports from the homeworld." "Show me." The data streamed directly into Zell's consciousness. The pattern was undeniable. The rate of quantum dissolution among Zrillion youth had increased by 200% in the past cycle. Their species was literally fading away, becoming too ethereal to maintain conscious form. Zell stared at the images of humans embracing, their crude physical bodies somehow generating energy patterns that defied Zrillion science. "We thought we had evolved beyond the need for physical contact," they whispered. "What if we were wrong? What if this is exactly what we need to save our children?" The humans below continued their daily lives, unaware that their simple acts of touch had just changed the course of an entire civilization. The Metropolitan Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit buzzed with activity as nurses moved between incubators, checking vital signs and adjusting equipment. None of them noticed the slight shimmer in the air near the window, Chief Scientist Zell's nearly invisible form observing their every move. For 3 Earth weeks, Zell had been studying this particular ward. Their initial curiosity about human touch had led them here, to these tiny, struggling beings and their caretakers. What they witnessed defied every principle of Zrillion medical science. A nurse reached into an incubator, gently placing her hand on a premature infant's chest. The quantum sensors built into Zell's consciousness exploded with data. The baby's vital signs strengthened immediately, its irregular heartbeat stabilizing under the simple pressure of human contact. "Remarkable," Zell transmitted to the observation vessel hovering in high orbit. "The energy transfer requires no technology, no quantum manipulation. It's completely natural." Through the neural link, Vec's response carried undertones of concern. "The Council is growing impatient, Chief Zell. They want to know if this primitive species holds the answer to our dissolution crisis." Zell's form rippled with frustration. How could they explain something their own advanced science barely comprehended? They had watched parents cradle their newborns, friends embrace, healers hold the hands of the dying. Each touch generated its own unique energy signature, as complex as any quantum equation but flowing with an organic simplicity their civilization had lost. A new nurse entered the ward, heading straight for the struggling infant. Zell recognized her from previous observations. She spent more time in physical contact with the babies than any other caregiver. The quantum readings from her touches were consistently the strongest. She lifted the tiny infant from the incubator, cradling it against her chest in what humans called kangaroo care. The energy patterns that erupted around them made Zell's form flicker violently. "Vec," they transmitted urgently. "Are you recording these readings?" "Confirmed. The energy output is unprecedented." The baby's vital signs didn't just improve, they surged. Blood oxygen levels, heart rate, brain activity, everything strengthened in response to the sustained skin-to-skin contact. But it was what happened next that shattered Zell's understanding of physical reality. As they adjusted their quantum perception to analyze the energy pattern more closely, their sensors detected something impossible, an echo of this same energy signature in their own ancient genetic records. Buried deep in the quantum structure of Zrillion DNA lay the dormant remnants of a similar ability, one their species had engineered out of themselves in their quest for transcendence. "Vec," Zell transmitted, their usually steady signal trembling. "Access the historical archives. Search for references to physical contact in pre-transcendence medical records." The response came quickly, heavy with implication. "Records found, Chief. Extensive documentation of healing practices involving direct energy transfer through physical contact. All research was discontinued during the Great Separation." The nurse gently returned the now sleeping infant to its incubator. The baby's vital signs remained strong, stabilized by that simple act of contact. Zell watched, their consciousness racing with possibilities and fears. They had believed touch was primitive, a sign of evolutionary inadequacy. Their civilization had spent millennia developing technology to replace it, pursuing an existence of pure energy and thought. But what if that development had been their greatest mistake? "Vec," Zell transmitted after a long pause. "Prepare a full report for the Council. And begin searching the archives for any surviving records of our original physical forms. If we're going to save our children, we may need to take several steps backward to move forward." In the incubator, the infant stirred slightly, its tiny hand reaching out instinctively for contact that was no longer there. Zell watched, understanding for the first time that their civilization's greatest advancement might lie not in abandoning their physical form, but in remembering how to use it. Dr. Liz Chen had devoted her career to studying human connection. 2 decades of research into developmental psychology had taught her that touch wasn't just important, it was fundamental to human survival. But nothing in her years of study had prepared her for the shimmering form that materialized in her university lab at midnight. "Please do not be alarmed," the translucent being said, its voice seeming to emanate directly into her mind. "We have chosen you because of your expertise in human biological connections." Liz gripped the edge of her desk, her knuckles white but her voice steady. "You're not human. I am Chief Scientist Zell of the Zrillion Collective. We have been observing your species, particularly your ability to transfer energy through physical contact. We need your help." The being, Zell, floated closer, their form rippling with bands of soft blue light. Liz noticed how they carefully maintained distance, never allowing their energy field to intersect with her physical space. "Why me?" she asked, her scientific curiosity beginning to overcome her fear. "Your research on touch-based therapy in trauma recovery. Your work with orphaned infants. You understand the power of physical connection better than most humans." Liz thought of her latest study, how gentle touch could calm cortisol levels in stressed infants, how skin-to-skin contact could stabilize premature babies when technology couldn't. "You've been watching our hospitals." "Yes. What you consider routine medical care is, to us, inexplicable. Our civilization abandoned physical form generations ago. We thought it was evolution. Progress. Zell's form flickered, their voice carrying an emotion Liz couldn't quite identify. We were wrong. As Zell explained their species crisis, their children fading away, their population slowly dissolving into pure energy, Liz's mind raced with implications. But one detail nagged at her. Why do you stay so far away? Zell's form dimmed slightly. Perhaps a demonstration would be more efficient than an explanation. They drifted closer, extending what appeared to be a tendril of pure energy toward her hand. The moment they made contact, Zell's entire form convulsed. They recoiled violently, their coherent shape almost dissolving entirely. The cry that echoed in Liz's mind was pure agony. Physical contact with solid matter causes us extreme pain, Zell explained once they had reformed. Our evolution away from physical form has made touch intolerable. But you need it, Liz realized. Your species is dying because you've lost the ability to connect physically. Yes. Our children are born too ethereal, lacking the density needed to maintain conscious form. We believe technology could substitute for physical contact. We were wrong, and now we face extinction. Liz stood, her mind already formulating hypotheses. You want to relearn how to touch. We want to understand how your species generates such powerful energy through simple contact. We hope to adapt our forms to. Zell's voice cut off as another Zrillian materialized in the lab, their form barely visible even in the dim light. Chief Zell, the new arrival's thoughts carried urgency. The Council has received your report. There is resistance. The conservative faction claims any attempt to restore physical form would be regression. They're calling for an immediate end to the Earth observation project. Liz watched Zell's form pulse with what she was beginning to recognize as distress. The stakes were becoming clear, this wasn't just a scientific inquiry. It was a race against time, complicated by politics and prejudice. Some things, it seemed, were universal. Dr. Chen, Zell turned to her. Will you help us? Even if it means defying your own authorities as well as ours? Liz thought of all the studies she'd done, all the evidence she'd gathered about the crucial importance of touch. She thought of the premature babies who thrived with skin-to-skin contact, of elderly patients whose health improved with regular gentle touch, of trauma survivors who healed through careful, conscious physical connection. Yes, she said firmly. But you should know, relearning how to touch isn't just about physical contact. It's about being willing to be vulnerable. To feel. Are your people ready for that? The silence that followed her question was heavy with implication. None of them yet realized that this was just the beginning of their challenges, or that the true pain of their endeavor would come not from physical contact, but from the emotional walls they would have to tear down first. The quantum cradle pulsed with a weak, flickering light. Inside, the infant Zrillian's form was barely visible, its energy signature fading like a star on the verge of collapse. Dr. Liz Chen watched through specialized goggles as the child's parents hovered nearby, their own forms distorted with what she now recognized as grief. That's the third case this week, Zell transmitted, their presence beside her dimmer than usual. Our youngest are fading faster than ever before. In the month since first contact, the Zrillians had converted part of their observation vessel into a research station. Liz's temporary lab was filled with a bizarre mixture of human and alien technology, standard medical monitors alongside quantum field generators, brain wave sensors next to devices she couldn't begin to comprehend. Show me the temporal comparison again, she requested, turning to the holographic display. The data materialized in the air, a chart showing the dissolution rates of Zrillian youth over the past century. The line's steep upward curve in recent months was impossible to ignore. It's accelerating, she muttered, mostly to herself. Almost as if the knowledge of what they're missing is making it worse. A soft alert sounded from her tablet. New data from her latest experiment, measuring the energy signatures generated by different types of human touch. She pulled up the results, and suddenly her hands began to shake. "Zell," she called urgently. "Look at this." The energy patterns from emotional contact, hugs between loved ones, parents holding children, couples holding hands, they're not just stronger than casual touch. They're fundamentally different. Zell moved closer to the display, their form brightening with interest. Different how? The wavelength patterns. Liz's fingers flew over the controls, overlaying multiple readings. In emotional contact, there's a synchronization effect. The participants' biological energy fields don't just touch, they resonate with each other, amplifying the effect exponentially. But what does this mean for... Zell's transmission cut off as alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Vec materialized in the lab, their forms so faint Liz could barely see them even with her specialized goggles. The infant in Cradle 7, total energy collapse imminent. They rushed to the quantum nursery. The child's parents were there, their forms pressed against the cradle's field barrier, as close to touching their baby as their species could manage. The infant's energy signature was barely registering on the monitors. Liz stared at the scene, her mind racing. The parents' distress, their instinctive attempt to reach their child despite their species' inability to touch. Something clicked. "Zell," she grabbed the alien scientist's attention. "Your people can't touch because it causes pain, right? But what kind of pain? Exactly what does it feel like?" "Like our very essence is being torn apart," Zell transmitted. "As if the point of contact is what? Is becoming too dense. Too solid." Zell's form pulsed with sudden understanding. "The pain, it's not from touching. It's from our bodies fighting the return to physical form." Liz's heart raced. "It's psychological. Your species' commitment to transcending physical form is so deep, you experience actual pain when forced to become more solid. You're not incapable of touch, you're afraid of it." The monitors tracking the infant's life force dropped to critical levels. The parents' forms flickered in despair. "The children," Liz continued, her voice urgent. "They're not dying because they're too ethereal. They're fading because they lack the one thing every living being needs to survive: connection. Real, physical, emotional connection." She turned to Zell, her expression fierce. "Your species didn't evolve beyond the need for touch. You conditioned yourselves to reject it. And now your children, born into a world of isolation, are literally fading away from lack of contact." The infant's signal weakened further. Its parents' distress filled the room like a tangible force. "There's only one way to test this theory," Liz said softly. "But it will hurt. A lot. At first." Zell looked at the dying infant, then at its devastated parents. Their next transmission carried both fear and determination. "What do you need us to do?" The monitors continued their ominous beeping as Liz prepared to challenge thousands of years of Zrillian evolution with a simple, terrifying truth: sometimes healing requires us to move toward our pain, not away from it. The research station's primary chamber had been cleared of all non-essential equipment. In its center, surrounded by monitoring devices, Chief Scientist Zell's shimmering form hovered above a simple medical bed. Their usual brilliant blue phosphorescence had dulled to a nervous gray. "The theory is straightforward," Dr. Chen explained to the assembled team of human and Zrillian scientists. "By gradually increasing physical density while maintaining emotional connection, we can help the Zrillian consciousness adapt to touch without triggering the panic response." She turned to Zell, her voice softening. "Are you sure you want to be the first? The pain will be intense." "My people are dying," Zell transmitted, their thoughts tinged with determination. "Our children fade while we debate. There is no other choice." Vec materialized near the observation window, their form unusually solid, a sign of extreme stress in their species. "The Conservative Council has issued a formal protest. They're calling this experiment an abomination against natural Zrillian evolution. Natural? Zell's transmission carried a sharp edge. There was nothing natural about our choice to abandon physical form. We engineered this isolation. And now? Their form flickered toward the quantum nursery where the infant from Cradle 7 clung to life, stabilized but still critically weak. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her hand raised toward Zell but not yet touching. We'll start with proximity. Focus on the sensation of my body's energy field. Don't fight the density increase, let it happen naturally. The monitors showed Zell's quantum structure beginning to compress. Their normally diffuse form started to concentrate, becoming more visible to the naked eye. Then came the first wave of pain. Zell's scream echoed through everyone's consciousness. Their form convulsed, trying to dissipate back to its usual state. But they held on, fighting against millennia of conditioning. Stay with me, Liz urged. The pain isn't physical damage, it's fear. Your body remembers how to do this. Trust that memory. In the observation area, other Zrillian scientists watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. Some had already fled, their conservative beliefs overwhelmed by the sight of a fellow Zrillian choosing to become more solid. Minutes stretched into hours. Zell's form repeatedly compressed and dispersed, each cycle bringing them closer to a stable density. Their consciousness broadcasts became increasingly fragmented, mixing physical agony with deeper, more primal fears. Lost, losing transcendence, becoming primitive. No, Liz countered firmly. Not losing, gaining. Finding what your people forgot. Connection. Touch. Life itself. The breakthrough came in the 7th hour. Zell's form suddenly stabilized at a higher density, their usual blue phosphorescence taking on an almost pearlescent quality. Liz slowly moved her hand closer. When her fingers finally made contact with Zell's semi-solid form, both human and alien gasped. The monitors exploded with data as energy patterns synchronized and amplified between them. The pain, Zell transmitted, wonder replacing agony in their thoughts. It's transforming. I feel. Their consciousness broadcast dissolved into pure emotion, grief for thousands of years of lost contact, joy at rediscovering this most basic form of connection, fear of what this change would mean for their civilization, and underneath it all, a profound sense of coming home. In the quantum nursery, the monitors around Cradle 7 suddenly shifted. The infant's energy readings strengthened slightly, responding to the successful contact happening rooms away, as if some fundamental barrier in their species' collective consciousness had begun to crack. Vec moved closer to the experiment area, their own form unconsciously beginning to compress. How does it feel? They asked Zell. Through the haze of sensation and emotion, Zell managed a clear transmission, like waking up. Like remembering something we should never have forgotten. They turned their newly stabilized form toward Liz. We need to expand the experiment. But not just with more subjects. We need to understand what we've been running from all these years. The true nature of physical connection. Liz nodded, already understanding. The hard part isn't the physical touch, she said softly. It's the emotional vulnerability that comes with it. Are your people ready to feel again? Really feel? The question hung in the air as the monitors continued to record this historic moment, the first successful physical contact between human and Zrillian in recorded history. But for Zell, maintaining their new semi-solid form through waves of sensation and emotion, an even more important truth was emerging: their species hadn't evolved beyond the need for touch, they had evolved away from their own hearts. And the path back would require more courage than any technological advancement ever had. The Zrillian High Council chamber, once a vast empty space where ethereal forms could drift freely, now contained solid seating arrangements. 3 months after the first successful human-Zrillian contact, the change in the chamber reflected the deeper transformation sweeping through their society. Half the council members had adopted semi-solid forms similar to Zell's, their shapes more defined, their energy signatures stronger. The other half remained in their traditional ethereal state, hovering as far from their modified colleagues as the chamber would allow. The dissolution rate among our youth has decreased by 60% in treatment groups, Zell reported, their pearlescent forms steady as they projected the data for all to see. Those infants whose parents have undergone density adaptation are showing unprecedented stability. At what cost? The thought voice of Council Elder Vaz cut through the chamber like ice. Look at what we're becoming. Our ancestors spent millennia transcending physical form, and now we embrace regression? Dr. Chen, present as a scientific advisor, watched the debate with growing concern. She'd seen this pattern before in human history, how fear of change could manifest as aggression, how progress often faced its strongest opposition just as it began to succeed. With respect, Elder, Zell responded, our ancestors' choice to abandon physical form was based on incomplete understanding. They equated transcendence with isolation. We now know better. In the public viewing gallery, a young Zrillian couple cradled their infant, actually cradled, their semi-solid forms allowing physical contact. The baby's energy signature pulsed strong and steady, visible proof of the treatment's success. Elder Vaz's form flickered with disgust. You speak of success, but I see only corruption. These, modified Zrillians, touching like primitives, experiencing emotions like animals. You've infected our society with human weakness. Weakness? The new voice came from Vec, who had just materialized in the chamber. Their form was now almost as solid as Zell's. I've spent the past week in the quantum nursery. Would you like to know what I observed? Without waiting for permission, Vec projected their findings. The chamber filled with images, Zrillian parents learning to hold their babies, children's energy patterns strengthening under physical contact, infants responding to touch with bursts of developmental growth that the quantum cradles had never achieved. This isn't regression, Vec transmitted. This is healing. We didn't evolve beyond emotion and physical contact. We amputated essential parts of ourselves and called it progress. The chamber erupted in conflicting thought patterns. Conservative members recoiled from the images, while others drifted closer, their forms unconsciously beginning to compress as they watched. Liz stood up, addressing the council. Your people face a choice now. The physical adaptation is just the beginning. Our real connection requires more than touch, it requires opening yourselves to joy, grief, fear, love, all the emotions you've been suppressing for generations. And risk losing everything we've achieved? Elder Vaz countered. Our technological supremacy? Our spiritual elevation? Look around you, Zell challenged, gesturing to the viewing gallery where more young Zrillians were gathering, many in various stages of density adaptation. Our achievements mean nothing if our children dissolve into nothingness. We're not losing our elevation, we're discovering that true transcendence includes connection, not isolation. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Vec quickly accessed the alert. The conservative research facility, they transmitted urgently. They've developed a quantum pulse designed to forcibly return modified Zrillians to their ethereal state. They're calling it a cure for the human contamination. The modified Zrillians in the gallery instinctively pulled their children closer. The simple gesture, so human, so parent-like, made Liz's throat tight with emotion. Zell's form flared with an intensity that illuminated the entire chamber. So it comes to this. They would rather risk destroying us than let us change. They turned to face the council. You fear we're losing ourselves by embracing physical form. I say we lost ourselves generations ago, when we chose isolation over connection. The real question isn't whether we'll change, it's whether we'll have the courage to become whole again. The chamber fell silent as the two factions faced each other across a divide far greater than physical space. In the gallery, more Zrillians began to compress their forms, choosing their side in the coming conflict. The transformation had reached its tipping point, and there would be no going back, only through. As tension filled the chamber, Liz remembered something she'd learned in her years of research, that sometimes the strongest resistance to healing comes just before the breakthrough. She could only hope the same would prove true for an entire civilization. 20 years after the first humans-Rillian contact, Dr. Liz Chen stood in the garden of the Intergalactic Cultural Institute, watching children play. The scene would have been unremarkable, except that some of the children glowed with bioluminescence, their semi-solid forms darting between their fully physical playmates. "Did you ever imagine this?" Zell asked beside her, their form now permanently stabilized in its pearlescent state. "When you first saw me in your lab that night?" Liz shook her head, smiling as a young Zrillian child helped a human toddler up after a fall, their hands clasped together naturally, without fear or hesitation. "I hoped we could save your children. I never dreamed we'd end up saving both our species." The crisis point had come that day in the council chamber, when the conservatives had attempted to forcibly cure the modified Zrillians. But they had discovered something unexpected: the adapted Zrillians' new forms weren't just stable, they were resilient. The quantum pulse designed to force etherealization had instead catalyzed a chain reaction of remembering. Every Zrillian exposed to the pulse had experienced a collective memory, the ancient time before their species had chosen to abandon physical form. They remembered the touch of parents, the embrace of loved ones, the healing power of connection. The wave of emotion had been so powerful it had knocked out their quantum networks for days. When the systems came back online, the conservative resistance had crumbled. Not through force or argument, but through remembering what they had lost. "The latest generation is different," Zell observed, watching the children play. "They never knew the fear of connection that we carried for so long." A group of young Zrillian researchers passed by, their forms varying between solid and semi-ethereal as they'd learned to shift states at will. They were headed to the Institute's medical wing, where human and Zrillian scientists worked together, combining physical touch therapy with quantum healing techniques. "We thought we had to choose," Zell continued, their voice thoughtful. "Between advancement and connection. Between transcendence and touch. We never imagined that true evolution meant embracing both." In the quantum nursery wing of the Institute, new Zrillian infants were born into cradles that incorporated both physical contact and energy field support. Their dissolution rate had dropped to 0. More remarkably, they displayed abilities neither species had possessed alone: the capacity to shift between physical and energy states, to heal through both touch and quantum resonance. "Your people still achieved transcendence," Liz noted, watching a teenage Zrillian shift from solid to ethereal form to reach a high branch for a younger human child. "Just not the way you originally imagined." "We transcended our fear," Zell agreed. "Our isolation. Our belief that evolution meant leaving parts of ourselves behind." A commotion from the Institute's main entrance drew their attention. A group of elderly humans from the adjacent care facility was arriving for their daily interaction session with Zrillian energy healers. The combination of human touch and Zrillian quantum therapy had revolutionized healthcare for both species. "You know what still amazes me?" Liz asked, watching the elderly humans greeting their Zrillian caregivers with genuine affection. "How something as simple as touch could bridge the gap between our species. All your advanced technology, and in the end, it was the most basic human capability that made the difference." Zell's form pulsed with gentle amusement. "Perhaps that's the lesson we needed to learn. That the most advanced civilization isn't the one that moves beyond its fundamental needs, but the one that honors them. That true evolution doesn't mean leaving our hearts behind, it means having the courage to let them grow." As if to emphasize the point, a small Zrillian child came running up to them, her form shifting between solid and ethereal in excitement. She grabbed both their hands, one human, one pearlescent, and pulled them toward the playground. "Come see what we made," she urged, her joy radiating in both physical and quantum frequencies. Liz and Zell exchanged glances, remembering that first painful touch experiment 20 years ago. Now, watching their joined species play, learn, and grow together, they understood the deeper truth, that sometimes the greatest advancement isn't reaching for the stars, but reaching for each other. That true transcendence doesn't mean rising above our need for connection, but rising above our fear of it. The future they had created wasn't just a merger of physical and ethereal, of touch and technology. It was a testament to the power of reaching through pain to find healing, through fear to find growth, through isolation to find community. In the end, the thing that had shocked the aliens most about human touch wasn't its healing power or energy signature, it was how it had reminded them of who they had always been, beneath the layers of supposed advancement and artificial evolution. They had traveled across the galaxy seeking salvation, only to find it in the simplest of human truths, that no being, no matter how advanced, can truly evolve by leaving its heart behind.